Welcome to Peppershock Media's Marketing Expedition podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in marketing and advertising. Now here's your host, Ray Allen.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm Rhea Allen, President CEO of Peppershock Media. And today we're doing things a little bit different. I have with me a repeat offender, Genny Heikka. Welcome, Genny.
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
So today we are doing things a little bit different because Genny, you explain what happened.
Okay, so Ray and I were having lunch a while back, and we started talking about our individual journeys, how we got to where we're at today, and she was sharing a little bit of her story and how she, even started Peppershock and got to the position she's in today. And I said, wait, we shouldn't be doing this over lunch. We should be recording this on a podcast because we know that there are so many leaders out there, managers, CEOs, people who have their own companies who would be interested in hearing journeys like yours, Ray, and some of the things that you've been through and challenges and successes and that type of thing. So we said, hey, let's do it. Let's schedule it. And so here we are today.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I'll ask you questions, you ask me questions, and then we'll just kind of banter back and forth. You ready for it?
Yes, but can I ask the first one?
Oh, sure. Okay, you go for it.
Since you're always the one asking the questions of your guests, I'd love to turn the tables on you. And one of the things we talked a little bit about was this whole idea of work-life balance and more of a work-life integration. You're a in not only of your company, but in the community as well. I know you're involved in a ton of different things. And so I'm just interested in how do you balance it all? Do you balance it all? How does it integrate? And I think that's going to be interesting too for the people listening because we all have our own schedules we're juggling. So how do you do it?
Right.
What does it look like for you?
Well, I think first of all, the idea of flexibility is very prevalent here. I mean, it's not just me, but my staff, if they need to go take care of their kids and do something, I'd rather them be with their children, right? I want them to go see their child's play or take them to the doctor, whatever. Well, same goes for me too. If I, need to take my kid to a doctor appointment, I'm going to go when I need to do that. And you're here today. It's a summertime. We're recording this in the summertime, and my kids are both here at the office with me.
I love that. And one of your sons was here last time I was here, I think.
Yeah. So sometimes they come and we put them to work. They get to do things. They cleaned out the attic and they take out the trash sometimes. And so it's integrating the family within the business at the same time. And I had that growing up. Yeah. So my grandparents on both sides were entrepreneurs. Yeah. And one side, my mom's side, they're farmers. And then on the other side, on my dad's side, they owned the Western Motel in Baker City, Oregon. Wow. So when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, I was spending summers cleaning toilets. And learning, if you don't do it right the first time, you're doing it again. Yeah. And I actually find myself saying that to my kids,
Isn't that
right?
Funny how we do that?
And making them clean toilets. So,
yes.
But yeah, I mean, it truly is like, they say work-life balance, but really it is integration. I mean, if you can do things where you're integrating your kids into what you're doing, but then, you show up to their football game that's in the middle of the day, they have a scrimmage, I can do that, but I can still take my work with me. And, when I want to be there for the important plays, I'm there and supporting them, but they're also recognizing and realizing that they support me with what I do. I recently put my 11-year-old to work in the car because, texting and driving is absolutely not what I want to show my kids ever. So I'm like, all right, Caden, I want you to send a text and this is what I want you to say. This is how I want you to say it and read it back to me.
Personal dictation service.
Exactly. So, it's just a good way to teach them about the entrepreneurial spirit, but, leverage that time together and show them, things about how to be a leader, really. And, we talk about things that happen in our day, and I'm not afraid to share things with them so that they understand what's going on. But, and Drew and I work in the business together, my husband and I, know, and so it really truly is it's a team effort. If the kids need to go somewhere, great. If I need to take off and do something, if I'm out of town at our other office or whatever, we truly are a team at it, and it works. It works for us. And people ask all the time, how do you do it with, working with your husband? And I'm like, I don't know how I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I do it. So it's natural and normal for me. And it's definitely an enjoyable experience for us to be able to balance that, but also integrate everything.
I love that. And I want to tap into one thing that you shared. And I think I remember you sharing a Facebook post about, was it your grandpa who inspired you because of his entrepreneurial spirit? So would you say he's like one of the key people that set you on your path to, being the CEO of your own company one day?
I do think my grandparents had a lot of influence on both sides, right?
Okay, yeah.
My grandparents, the farmers, and also my grandma has a ceramic shop, and she teaches ceramics, so the creative side too,
Yeah.
But definitely money management. I actually learned how to balance the books legit with a T-sheets, like a ledger, like a handwritten. This is before computers, and even when they had computers, they still didn't use them, right?
Yep.
And I think to this day, my grandma still, for the farm, does everything through a ledger, like a book,
Yes.
like she doesn't know what QuickBooks is. So
Yeah.
I mean, I at least had a foundation and understanding and what that meant. And when I was in Baker City, I actually remember riding my bicycle to the bank with the bank bag to go make the bank deposit. And I mean, I don't know if that would happen this day and age, but I had like the princess bike with the banana seats and the streamers, and I rode my bike up to the bank and plopped the thing on and got the deposit, receipt. So definitely kind of had that foundation from my grandparents.
Yeah, that is so cool. I think about, one of my passions is helping women, right? Helping to equip and empower women. That's a lot of what I do in my coaching practice. And so I'm just curious, what would you say to the woman who is listening to you and thinks like, gosh, how did you do that? Like, how could I want to do that, but I'm not sure how I would, or, maybe the woman who wants to get into leadership, but might be hesitating. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Speaking to other women out there.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of grew up shy, believe it or not, until
I actually don't believe that.
I know. It sort of transitioned. It did.
Right, you are not shy.
I know, but it's true now. I mean, I don't know why I was shy, but I think that I developed over time and recognized that I can be inclusive and I can draw on other people's talents and skills, even in school, like in high school, even I could pull people together and come up with what we needed to get done. And the whole thing about surrounding yourself with smarter people than you are, I fully subscribe to that. And just putting people in the right place and doing that. But if you have that entrepreneurial bug and you kind of keep thinking, maybe I do want to be a leader, maybe I do want to do this, surround yourself with others who are doing it and learn from them and get some inspiration. And another thing is that early on I found mentors and like people who had been in business for a really long time.
I think that is so key. So key.
And people that I still to this day call on and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or and I still do that. And I think that even when we very first started, it's scary because you don't know what you're doing. You have to feel like you're winging it. And I started the business at such a young age. I've not only, women in business, but young. So I had to prove myself.
Right.
And I had that feeling of like, I'm not being taken seriously until I showed that I had, the wherewithal to be able to do it. So there's kind of a double whammy for you. Don't be afraid. Just, get out there and do it. And and ask a lot of questions and, I follow the people that I went to lunch. I remember some fairly successful people, they, semi-retired, and I just asked them questions. How did you do it? What did you do?
Yes.
And, how'd you get started and all of those things. So kind of similar experience. So
and not feeling like you have to have it all figured out or all perfect. That's exactly what I did when I started my coaching and consulting practice. Exactly. Yeah. And I even remember when I share the story of how her team success came about, I even remember it's like I created my little free WordPress website on my own, and it would make you shudder. I'm
sometimes
getting a new one right now, which
Yay.
I'm excited about. We're almost done. But you know what? I just put it out there, And I knew enough. I mean, I have a marketing and communications background, so I knew enough of what I needed to have on it. But I put it out there, and that is actually how I got my first client. And so I always tell women, or anyone really, don't hold back until the timing is perfect, or the timing is just right, or you have it all figured out, because we will really never have it all figured out.
No. After 16 years of this business, every day I'm still trying to figure stuff out.
Exactly. And so being able to ask questions and build those key relationships. The other thing I think about, and one of the questions we talked about maybe talking about today is, like, what is one of the key things that has influenced your success? And when you were talking just now about people and mentors, that's my answer. It's really people. And I think about some of the neat opportunities I've had, and they didn't start with like, landing that one client or, that one gig. It was really a conversation, an outreach, a thank you note, an offer to volunteer, an offer to get involved in something. There was these little seeds along the way, and that's what ends up leading to success over time. And it's all about the people and relationships, which is why personal branding is so important.
So who was your first client?
My first client was a woman who was she was a higher level marketing manager at a company in Boise. So and so I felt so lucky, and she found me online. Nice. And so that was really exciting. So and then just one thing, kind of led to another. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So let's talk about, do you have any thoughts on like what has been one of the toughest challenges in your career path, or even just in your overall path?
I think cash flow has always been one of those things that's like a challenge, good and bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and
that's a reality, especially for small business owners. So for those of you out there who are small business owners, I'm sure you can relate.
Well, and I learned the hard way that when you have cash and you are doing well, that is the time when you are needing to borrow money, not when you don't have cash. That is not when you get to borrow money, because they won't give you money.
That's a good insight.
So it's completely backwards. I did not pick up on that until later and realized that they're not going to give me money if I don't have money to pay it back, right? Yeah. It's all about leveraging and understanding, how you can pay the bank back, right? Yeah. And so when you have cash, that's when you want to extend your line of credit. That's when you want to, make those things that the purchases in that. But when you don't, just recognize and realize that the times that you had it is the time that you needed to get it more,
That's actually a good insight.
Yeah. I mean, and it took me a while to understand that. And, so that was one thing that was kind of a challenge to learn. And it makes sense. I mean, the bank wants collateral and they want to know that you're going to pay it back. And, but it seems it's counterintuitive, because like you go to the bank to borrow money when you need it, and it's just kind of an interesting concept. But we got through that. And then, another challenge that you face that I have learned quite well is, you got to hire right. You have to hire for people who are in alignment, and we talked about personal branding and corporate branding, company branding. Do the people, are they in alignment with your brand?
Right.
Are they who you want to be on your team? Yeah. And vice versa. Is that company the one that you want to be,
right? Aligned with your values and strengths, all of that. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
And I've learned, there's turnover and then there's turnover, right? And sometimes turnover is good, because, you may have somebody that doesn't fit. They're maybe toxic, and it's just not helping your company, move to the next level. And then, turnover, it's sad when people leave. And, it's like I had to get over it and not take it personal, right? Oh, they're leaving me, It's like I'm getting divorced from my, one of my employees that I love. And, and it happens. I mean, it's like, sometimes people want to move on because they think that the grass is greener on the other side. I always tell them the grass is only greener where you water it, right?
Or it could be that you developed them in such an amazing way.
Exactly.
That they're now ready for their next
wings
challenge.
And fly. And that's happened a lot, especially if we hire right out of college. We train them up and teach them up. And it really did. I had to understand that, no, this is my purpose for those positions in that, we might have turnover every 2 to 3 years because we train them up, and then they now have the ability to go and do what they want to do in-house or other places. And it's true. And that's happened. And so I realized and recognized that, no, that's actually a good thing. It's what we can contribute within the junior level, and then it makes me proud instead of like sad, because I was like, look at what we did and where she landed because of us. Right. Or who, he or she, whatever case might be.
Right.
So, I mean, that challenge kind of turned into an opportunity, and it's good for us because then when we have like, the interns that we do hire, and if they're fresh out of college or university, we learn kind of the new latest and greatest that they're teaching in academics, and fresh perspectives, but yet they get to have our experienced, senior staff really teach them way of the world, So it's a good, we get just as much out of interns as they get from us in some capacity, because they might be learning new techniques or new methodology that kind of gets then infiltrated into what we're doing. Because we ask them, like, today we just had our intern farewell for summer interns, and we ask them, okay, what did you learn? And then I ask my staff too, well, what did you learn from the intern? Great. And it's kind of fun, because then the intern's like, ooh, I taught, I didn't know that, or, I didn't know that I taught her that, or this or that, or whatever. It's kind of fun because sometimes you can, poke fun at it a little bit, but at the same time, it's truly a magical experience to have that young, fresh perspective, and, have, and actually allow them the freedom to be able to work on client projects and that kind of thing. So I don't know. People can be really, really great sometimes, and people can be really, really challenging too. So
sometimes we're all just a hot mess. So
exactly, It's good.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
What about you? See, I'm going to ask you questions too, right?
Okay.
We got to bounce back and forth. Yeah. That's what we said, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think,
challenges for you.
Yeah, I think when I think like over my whole history, the challenge that stands out the most to me goes back to my writing days. So for those of you listening who don't know, before I did coaching and consulting, I was an author. I wrote children's books, and then I wrote a book for moms. And before I even got my first book contract, the rejection letters. Oh my goodness, Ray. Really hundreds, and I mean it. And that's normal, but it doesn't make it feel any better.
Of course not.
So when I think of tell me about your failures, or tell me about those obstacles or roadblocks, I go straight back to those days when I was just sending out submission after submission after submission and getting rejection after rejection after rejection. But what I will say, and it's so interesting how often I get to talk about this now, because when I'm working with women who are experiencing what they would call failure or hitting roadblocks, I'm able to pull some of those stories out and hopefully encourage them. And I think the main thing that I got from that is don't give up.
Right.
Don't give up. And it's all about perseverance and the journey, right? When you're in it, you just, I was just, hey, give me the book contract, right? I don't want to wait for 3 years or whatever it ended up being. But when I look back now, I see that the timing was perfect. So that's really what stands out to me the most.
Right. I always say we don't have challenges, we have opportunities.
Yes.
Right? Opportunity to learn, opportunity to, the whole idea of failing faster so that you can learn quicker, right?
Yep.
And so that's good. That's good so that you can go through that. One of our principles is resiliency, so that fits right into being resilient, right?
Yep.
And bouncing back, and even though people say no in sales too, people say no.
Yes.
How many no's do you have to have before you have a yes? Know, and then when you do get a yes, then ideally it's going to be a really great, hard-earned yes.
Yep.
And it'll be a good fit, because then, sometimes we say no to clients too.
Yeah.
And we've gone through that process. Sometimes it feels good to say no to somebody on the flip side, but at the same time, it's tough, and you have to be resilient.
Yeah, there's always a lesson behind the no. So, it's hard when you're in it, right? Mm-hmm. We're all human. We all have those things we would consider, failures or roadblocks, but but sometimes those are necessary to get us to the next step in our journey. So it's all good.
Yeah. So the children's book is out there in the world?
So I have 6 children's books actually, but here's the funny thing. I don't know why I say funny, but I got my book deals were through a children's book publisher in Korea called 1010, a big children's book publisher there. The children's book industry is really big there, but the distribution rights didn't include the United States. So while I got my box of my each book, they were like children's board books, and some of them were for more elementary age kids. I would get my author's copies, and I have them, but I can't sell them to people, and they're not in Barnes & Noble or even on Amazon. So it's a little bit of a different arrangement, but it was such a fun and amazing journey, and it was awesome. Yeah, loved it. Yeah,
Very
cool. They're on my website, my GennyHeikka.com website, where you can view them and see them, but you just can't purchase them. So, yeah.
Well, next time, now you'll do adult books, right?
Yeah.
What are you working on next? What's next?
Yeah, on my radar, you and I have talked, and you've got to share about your book too. So I've taken a break from writing because I've just been doing a lot of speaking and really getting my coaching and consulting practice up and running and working with women in companies. But I think the next thing on my radar, writing-wise, and I'm not sure as far as timing, is a book having to do something with personal branding, the power of your personal brand. This is something that is resonating with women, really helping women discover more about who they are, and then helping them lean into their strengths and maximize their brand, and really figure out what do they want to be known for, and then be able to manage that and move forward so that they are known for what they want to be known for, and so they're living a life where they feel like they're having purpose and passion. So that's a mouthful, but that's kind of on my radar. And I even have an outline for it and all of that. Good. But I just am not, they say, what does it take to write a book? But in chair. So I have not, I've been out and about doing other things.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you?
So I took a week this summer and took the family, of course, including them. We went to the Oregon coast, and the entire intent for that trip, aside from vacation and spending some family time, we rented this cute little place right along the beach, and it had a big giant window, and
I love the Oregon
I did
coast.
sticky notes of an outline of my first book. So the outline is now completed. Yay! And I'm working on it. Yay! I'm hoping to have it done by our next Culture and Brand Camp, but it is about culture and branding, really just writing about the Peppershock way and things I've learned along the way, successes, frustrations, stories to tell, some goals that we set and met, and some tools and technology pieces that we use, and just hopefully other people can, either be inspired or learn from the things that I've learned. Yeah. And I have a compilation of just different tips and things that I gained along the way from, my mentors and people who I've learned from, and, and books that I've read, and just a kind of compilation of that, and some activities that people can do. So culture and branding, and, having happy employees makes happy customers. There's just a lot about building your brand and your bottom line through your people. Yeah. And so there's going to be some chapters in it that we can do some exercises with, and so this summer, the Oregon coast trip, of course, it rained a couple days, which was good for me, like you said, butt in seat. I was certainly there and doing that, and had a good writing session. My husband would take the kids out on the beach, and the days that it wasn't raining, they were pretty much out there the whole day. Reapply sunscreen,
yes.
Even if it's cloudy out. I kind of was able to dedicate and focus on that time spent. I had to turn off my Facebook notifications and Instagram and emails. I just kind of turned off the outside world for a while, unless I needed to research something or find something that I wanted. But I got that going, and
I have to can I interrupt you, because I have to just say, in the writing world, we always say write what you know. And so I'm super excited about that, because you know that, right? Yes. You do these culture and brand camps, and so for all you listeners out there, this is going to be an awesome book for you.
I'm excited.
But Ray, that's awesome. That's going to be so great. Take everything that you have up here, in your head, and get it out there, and be able to share. And so that's congratulations.
Stacy Ennis, who's been kind of helping me along the way, and she's written several books, and she's got a book out there with one of our clients, Price Associates, Ron Price, and Growing Influence. Well, she said, Ray, you have enough content for a whole series of books.
Exciting.
So I'm trying to figure out of the outline,
what does that look like?
How many, I may have just outlined 4 books. So
that is awesome. You're going to need more trips to the coast.
I know.
Girl.
I'm where are we going next? What's the next plan? But it was kind of fun, though, because my oldest son was on a 50-mile hike with scouts. Yeah. My husband was gone on a day trip with my other kid and his dad, Drew's dad, and they went to go, check out some property. So I had the entire Saturday to myself.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get more done. And so I'm like, those are the moments that I just need to keep looking for when I have my time to, like you said, put my butt in that seat and do what I need to do.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Good for
and now
you.
I found myself, and maybe you can relate to this. Now, every time I see something or think of something that needs to go in the book, I'm like constantly like, you know, well, where's my notebook? Oh, my pen. I got to write this down. Oh, wait, hold on. You know,
that's so good.
Yep.
And you actually hit on a key thing. And so for your listeners because don't you find, especially when you start sharing that you're working on a book, so many people have a book that they've been wanting to write or they want to someday write. So if you're out there and that's you, I hope that's encouraging to hear because one of the things that is so important is, create some sort of a filing system for ideas and the Post-its. And it can be online, it can be physical, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
And then the other thing that I would say is, like we said, butt in chair, but I want to share too, when I first started my writing journey, I had a toddler and a baby, and it was just kind of like in the middle of that, you know, it's all kind of a blur phase.
Yeah.
Sometimes I only had like 20 minutes a day to write, you know, but you just grab it when you can, like you said,
Totally.
you look for those moments. It can look messy, it can be choppy, but just a little bit a day.
Yep.
You know, start writing and you are a writer, right? I had somebody tell me that one time. So.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not an author yet. I'm a writer. Well, and like
awesome.
Shelley G was on the show a couple podcasts ago, and she held up her phone to her mouth and said she like dictates.
You told me that. Yes.
You know,
See,
so little voice memos and you know all of those things. You should see my notebook now. I have all my sticky notes in my notebook, so I haven't gotten rid of them yet. So now my notebook is full of sticky notes.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
But it's true though. I mean, like, I think the sticky note process was amazing because then you could just move them where you thought and move it up and down and all around. It all worked out until the sun because I told you I put them up on the window. The sun like faded some of them out. So then I had to like rewrite them, but you know, it all worked out, and it was really good experience to kind of go through like the sticky note throwdown of just kind of free everything that you could think of that you wanted to include. And then you could, you know, move them around like Legos and put them where you wanted. And then of course once I get it into the computer, I'm still moving things around, but you know, I think I finally maybe have it where I want it as far as the order of things. So like I gotta just stop tweaking it.
so cool.
Yeah.
And I have to say, we didn't talk about asking this question, but like you're just lit up, and like when you say culture and brand camp, and you and I get so excited seeing this because I love seeing people who are fired up and energized about what they do, and you totally are. So I'm just curious, why marketing? Why culture and brand camp? Why do you love what you do so much?
Well, when I very first started this business, I did not pay attention enough or give my staff enough credit and appreciation because I was just grinding, going, doing, and I transitioned and recognized that when I take care of my people, then they take care of our clients. And I had to completely transition my thought. And, you know, when I was younger, starting this business, it was proving myself. It was being hard-headed and being stubborn and, you know, all of those things kind of just, I had to recognize and realize that is not the way to be a leader, you know, and so I learned the hard way, and I want other people to learn from what I went through and recognize that culture is a part of your brand. And it is definitely, you know, people buy from you because of you, but they also buy because of your people that you work with, right? And your employees stay because of the people that they work with. And you know, I think that that's a primary thing that leaders need to recognize and realize. Sometimes people will say, oh, culture, somebody else is going to deal with that. That's an HR thing. Or, you know, we'll put money into that next year. Well, you can't look at it that way.
Right.
Culture is going to happen whether you want it or not. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that is so key that you shared that. I've been reading Gallup's latest book called "It's the Manager." I think I mentioned it to you the other night when we saw each other. But what's so interesting to me is they share this cycle, and it's like this wheel. But basically, when you have engaged customers, it's because you have engaged employees, and that goes back to your point on culture and how do you increase your employee engagement? Well, it's so fascinating that this whole book is basically on the premise: it's the manager, it's the leader, right? And it says that they did this whole global study, tons of data, research-based, but 70% of employee engagement is directly tied back to the manager.
Yeah.
70%.
That's huge.
So just for all those leaders and managers, CEOs, whoever's out there that's leading people, it's to not underestimate the position that you're in and the influence that you have and the ability, like you said, to really just develop employees and care about employees and that kind of thing, nurture culture.
Up, coaching and when I first started this, it was like people would hear the wrath of Rhea and like, I don't want to be known as that. That's not what I want.
Can't even picture that.
I know. And so, I've definitely changed a lot in leadership style and just having that understanding. And you're absolutely right. Yeah. Your employees are what makes or breaks you as a company. And if you can have your employees be a part of the brand, and there's employer and employee brand, right? So there's two different things to look at there, the employer brand, but the employee brand and how they talk about you as a company and as a leader and all that kind of stuff. So
and how they see themselves connected to that, so and the fact that you and I know I came in and did a personal branding session with your staff, which was so awesome. But the fact that you encourage your team, think about, what are you known for? What do you want to be known for? What are your strengths? What are your passions? What are your values? And really focusing it back on the heart of each person. I love that. That's super cool. It's so neat when teams do that. Too,
absolutely.
Because it impacts and touches your company brand as well.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of assessments and strength finders and, how people fit in and how they like to be communicated and, pet peeves and all of those things that we find out. And we're doing our powwow. We always do every year our Peppershock powwow where we work on the business, not in the business. And there's a number of things, and we, set the agenda and decide what we want to discuss with the team. And then they help, determine what we're going to cover and, have ownership in that. And then once we get done working on the business, we're going to go camping with everyone, spouses, dogs, kids. We're going to go there. Yep, exactly.
That's so cool that you talk about, culture and creating an environment of teamwork and camaraderie and super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
I'm looking forward to it. It's always a good time every year. And people look forward to it as well. And
that's a good idea for other companies too.
Absolutely.
Something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full camping trip, but
a day out, a retreat
or whatever.
To do something, spend time. Those that play together stay together, right? And I this year I'm doing something I think is cool, and hopefully it'll turn out that way, and people will think it is. But the number one thing that kind of as a monetary, but not really, because non-monetary incentives to engage your employees. Well, one of the things that we're going to be doing is giving away PTO coupons, so where they can earn additional time off. I'm going to give them their time back, essentially,
which ties back to flexibility and that whole work-life integration thing we talked about.
So I'm excited to see how this all turns out. If it works out well, then I'll write a chapter about it in the book.
As a best practice. Okay,
That's
how are we on time? Because I had more questions, but I don't want to.
Let's go maybe another 10 minutes or so. How about that?
Yeah. Well, do you have a question, or do you want me to roll with a question?
Well, I want to know what your next step is for your coaching business. You have an event coming up, right?
Yeah. Well, several. When? Did I tell you about something? I don't know.
Well, I thought you were going to go speak at this big event.
Oh, well, I have a couple of speaking things coming up. So it looks like I'm going to Phoenix in October to speak with women, do sort of a personal branding workshop with women in the restaurant industry. And so things like that. And I love doing that, where getting women together in a room, teams together in a room, and talking about the power of your personal brand and what does that mean, and what are we even talking about personal brand, and how does that relate to your company's brand? So I actually have a few of those that I'm working on moving forward. And then
I just have to know, do they serve those famous rolls that they serve at their restaurant? Do you get to eat those?
I don't know if I can say this.
Okay.
I don't know.
I didn't name names. I'm getting hungry, apparently.
Yes, I know. But some fun speaking things coming up too. I know you've got some of that as well, which is really great. And you and I are going to be at the Women in Leadership conference coming up. Do you want to touch on that at all? Or?
We're talking about women getting started in business and marketing, networking, all the things that they need to think about, alternative financing and funding, and just all of those things that you need to know when you start a business.
Yeah.
And then I'm also doing a skill builders class on being on board. So across the United States, there are less than 20% of women on boards.
Yeah.
And it's proven that if you have women on your board, you are more profitable, more productive, because there's a different perspective. So I am talking about what it means to be on a board, why you should be on a board, what it does for you and your company, and the experiences that you have. I mean, if you can work through boards and, have a whole bunch of type A personality people in a room and you can manage that, then you are learning something.
It's a great experience. Yeah.
So I'm talking about being on board, and I've partnered with
that
the
title.
2020 women, 2020, so 20% of women on board by 2020. Which, they're getting closer, we're getting closer. And it's really interesting because like the state of California actually has now made it mandatory that you have a woman on your board if you're a for-profit company that is a, public company. So, which has its benefits and drawbacks, because now they're like, oh, well, they're just going to appoint somebody who hasn't earned it. And so then there's that debate, which will be kind of interesting to see what happens. But I believe that if you can give back for profit or nonprofit, and you can serve on a board, and I've served on several, so I have a lot of experience in that regard. And I've also had advisory boards for Peppershock. We're not a public traded company, but I've had advisory boards, and I'm going to talk about what it means to serve on an advisory board and why it's important to have a board if you are going to be a startup or you are in business. Just like having mentors or, those people that you can draw on, like I was talking about earlier, their collective experience. You may not necessarily always take their advice, but at least you have that to rely on to then, make some decisions.
Valuable.
So,
yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other exciting things coming up you want to mention?
Well, I'm doing a mini culture and brand camp through the Boise Metro Chamber of Commerce, their business education series that they have me coming in to do that. And then We Rock Women Entrepreneurs Recognizing Opportunity for Capital in Salt Lake City. It'll be the third year. We've got some amazing women entrepreneurs who, started their business and learned a lot about being in business because of We Rock. And we have some success stories that we'll be sharing there, how they were able to get funded and got some seed money going. And so that will be fun. Then we have, in 2020, we'll have our big culture and brand camp, and it's evolved. It was a half day. Now it's going to be a full day. Eventually, I want to make it like a retreat where we actually go to like a camp.
Love that.
Right? Like rent out like the YMCA camp or do something where we go and we work on building brands and bottom lines through your people. And we bring people together and we go through culture and branding. So,
is that something that's open to all listeners, like the big one in 2020?
Yep. So I believe it's May 12th, 2020. And so we're opening it up. I mean, leaders, aspiring leaders, people who obviously work with people, it's all about culture and branding and how, your brand is your culture is your brand, but how to leverage that and how to utilize that people that are in your company to help elevate it. So
I love it. So if we maybe we wrap with this, depending on timing, but what do you think, and this might be interesting for your listeners too, but what are you excited about? I know I have some things in the back of my mind, but what are you excited about when you look at today's business climate? It could be in general, and it could even just be here in the Treasure Valley in Idaho. Have any thoughts, anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we keep, expanding outside of the area too, with Salt Lake and Oregon and, all Pacific Northwest. We even have clients in Chicago now. I mean, it just, I think that with technologies that we have, through Zoom and being able to connect to people wherever you are anymore. I mean, and workplace flexibility, we have meetings where I have people who they are telecommuting to go see their family in Montana, and then we all collect together. So I just think that technologies are helping to bring us together in a lot of ways. Now, in some ways, they're kind of making us not come together. Like if you're my 11-year-old child who wants to be on his phone,
Get
so I have to limit screen time. I keep telling them, you're going to get tech neck, where their neck is like always down. You're going to get tech neck. Anyway. But so I think that there's some exciting, ways that we can do business. We've moved into doing more marketing automation and tracking and just seeing how things are going through a dashboard and, being able to instantaneously see what's working, what's not, which is completely transitioned from, 10 years ago. We didn't know the true result of our efforts, but now we can see that our efforts is making an impact and how they make an impact, and, being able to pivot when something isn't, and just being a lot more nimble when you need to make changes right away. So I'm going to say technology is making things a lot more exciting.
Very cool. It sounds like on the marketing front too, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. I think of, I'm kind of thinking of, it boils up for me to just this increased emphasis on authenticity, but also on development of people. And it's so, that's why it's like, to hear you talk about that with your team is just that's so exciting. And back to this Gallup book, because my head has just been in this book for several days. But
I'm going to have to pick it up or listen to it. I do a lot of audiobook.
It's really good. But on the back, it just gives this brief summary, and I hope I get this right, but it's basically, today's workforce is changing. It's no longer my paycheck, it's now my purpose. And it's no longer my manager, it's my coach. And it's no longer my, what do they say, annual review, it's my ongoing conversations. And so this idea of I want to find a job and a career that matters, where I can find purpose and meaning and feel passionate about it, is increasingly important. And the technology ties into that too, and the flexibility too, because flexibility is like a key value that people are looking for in their careers these days as they're searching for more meaning and significance. So all of that to say, I get super excited about that because I'm just all on the professional development, personal development side. But the thing that I think is so cool with the companies that I have been working with is just this desire to develop employees, and also to acknowledge employees for who they are and help them to be basically their best self in their job. So if that means strengths assessments and what does that look like, or and actually living that out and looking for opportunities to lean into your strengths, or just creating a culture where people can show up and not feel like they have to do filtering or hiding and that kind of a thing, and how that contributes to, when you don't have to do that and you can just be yourself, then it contributes to productivity and teamwork and innovation and creativity and all of that. So I mean, I could go on and on. It's a mouthful, but all that stuff, and at the heart of, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love this type of conversation with you, and why during lunch we were like, we've got to talk about this on the podcast, was because behind the, CEO of Peppershock is Rhea, and, Rhea the person, Rhea the leader, Rhea the mom. And so I love being able to highlight that, because then it's like, I feel like people can see themselves in your story and in other leaders' stories and say, hey, I can do that too, Just a side note on that, have you seen that Netflix documentary, Kim Swims?
No.
Oh my goodness, Ray. Okay, so talk about an inspiring woman.
Okay.
Her name is Kim, and I think her last name is Chambers.
Okay.
But she did this amazing swim in the San Francisco Bay, historic, and it's just this amazing documentary. The perseverance of her spirit, I cannot even describe the strength of this woman.
Oh my gosh.
But just watching that and seeing her story inspired me, wow, and I'm stressed about what?
Oh, okay.
If she can do that, I can do that. And so back to the point of when we share a little bit of our stories and share a little bit, and you even shared some struggles and lessons you've learned, and when we do that, we hear each other's stories and we see ourselves in each other's stories, and then we can all learn and grow together. And, I just love that.
I love it too.
That's my happy little ending.
No, you said performance reviews, and so I was just going to make a point. I don't call them performance reviews anymore. I call them coaching sessions.
Oh,
we
I
have
love
coaching
that.
sessions because I think that performance review has this stigma of I'm going to get in trouble, or, so it's no, it's more coaching sessions, and I have our managers coach, or our leaders, our coaches, if you will, I like that, coaching our people. So I love that too. I think that it's a different mentality. I'm gonna definitely read this book that you're talking about too,
it's so
and
good.
pick it up. But
it's packed with data. If you like research and data, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many great nuggets in there. But
good.
Lots of good changes going on there. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming and kind of turning the table a little bit.
That was so fun. Anytime.
Well, we'll have to do it again for sure. I'm sure we can talk lots of different topics.
I know. Maybe we'll do this again in the future. But thank you, Ray. I appreciate it. And thank you all out there for listening. It's been fun.
Yep. And how do they get a hold of you?
So I've got a speaking website, GennyHeikka.com, and it's GennyHeikka. I like to spell it out because my name,
it's
normally,
bizarre.
It's bizarre.
Mine too.
And then my coaching and consulting company is herteamsuccess.com. a little easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right.
Well, thanks for sharing, and thanks for, poking at me and asking questions.
Yes.
It's always fun to kind of, be on the other side for a little bit. So thanks for that. And thank you for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. And there's lots of other podcasts. So take a listen, subscribe to us, and we'll have more for you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Find more online at peppershock.com.